want to thank Deputy Mairead Farrell, my colleague in Galway West, and Deputy Press Doherty for bringing this legislation before the Dáil, and I'll certainly be supporting it. Minister, this is the second statutory review of the Regulation of Lobbying Act, and your predecessor said we didn't need to do anything. That was just January of this year. If you're bringing another approach, I welcome that. But we're now in November, and just in January there was absolutely no need to change the legislation, he said. And that's particularly worrying because he talked about bringing transparency, and the importance of transparency of interest representation is key to allowing citizens to track the activities and the potential influence of those who lobby. And then you go to the back of this, having read it, and he says there's no need for any changes. There's no compelling business case, which is ironic, the use of the word business case. You should only change legislation where there's a compelling business case for change, where it's clear and unequivocal. You don't agree with that, presumably? That was January of this year for that department, and the Minister said we don't need to change anything, and the few changes that are required can be done on an administrative basis. That was a blatant denial of what SIPO said in their second report and their first report. Now, I would have thought any department, and yourself, if you're genuinely interested, and I appreciate your bona fides in relation to this matter, and certainly your speech, you've moved on a little bit from the position in September where you were simply reviewing Section 20, Section 22. Now you're reviewing more of that, and that's good, but that has been brought by the Sinn Féin bill before this House, and that really is very upsetting when you talk about learning and doing things differently. So we set up SIPO, and I mean, I wouldn't describe them as ultra-radical, would you? They're moderate, reasonable, rational, and they produced a detailed report, 22 recommendations, and they set out where the legislation was inadequate, and they asked for changes with that. And they said, we've already pointed this out in our first report, and we're pointing it out again now. And so the department, with the Minister for Public Expenditure, ignores it all. And so it takes a Sinn Féin motion tonight to bring forward some of the recommendations, and I thank them. They've used their private members' time for that. Now, you have to ask, why would we have to rely on an opposition party with the less resources that we have to bring a bill like this, when SIPO have clearly pointed out the absolute necessity for the bill and for the different recommendations? Now, some of them are extremely basic. To allow them the right of investigation in relation to non-compliance with the Code of Conduct, to lay a Code of Conduct before the Dáil, to publish some reports, to publish some details of some reports in the interest of fairness, in the interest of people who have been cited in the media of contravening the code when they haven't. I mean, SIPO have pointed out clearly the downside of not publishing things. Don't you think a proactive department and a proactive minister, if they were seriously interested in openness and accountability, would deal with that? When we look at what's been asked here, as I said, they're extremely basic. And I'm just going to go to page 11 here in relation to the Commission. Earlier this year, the Commission became disciple of a possible breach of Section 22 of the Act. Following correspondence with the person and the employer, the Commission was satisfied that Section 22 of the Act had been contravened. The Commission had no authority to investigate this breach of the Act. The above breach brings into sharp focus the lack of power to enforce the Act's post-employment provisions or to impose sanctions for persons who fail to comply with these, directly in relation to the revolving door and so on. And we have a review that says we didn't need any changes whatsoever. I mean, my time is limited, my time is up. But there are many issues here. At this point, all I can say, Minister, if you're going to do things differently, then take away the 9 months. We don't need, I always think of 9 months as a pregnancy, you know. We don't need another 9 months to review this. What we do need is for you to read the 2 reports from SIPO themselves and the practical recommendations that they made there and act on them. Thank you, and thank you to Sinn Féin.